Okay, so today's piece is Sofia Gubaidulina's Piano Sonata from 1965, dedicated to Henrietta Mervis. I do have the complete score here, but I don't have the front matter, unfortunately. I think it's about 15 minutes of music. I was able to find, however, this dissertation, just quickly Googling this piece, and it's from my alma mater, University of North Texas, oddly enough. So I may get this last name wrong, but Ivana Bajic. But yeah, she's talking about her three recitals um, with works by all these classical composers and also Gubaidulina as the sole sort of like 20th century composer. So I believe that this pianist does do a lecture recital based on this. Now, if we go to the chapter on this piece, we do get some background on it. Uh, it was written 2 years after Gubaidulina completed her studies at the Moscow Conservatory, given a modern musical idiom, which was rather brave in the Soviet Union at the time. 1965 is like sort of after the death of Stalin, I believe. Yeah, and sort of like Khrushchev's thaw is the period, I believe. Um, Gubaidulina regards her other work, Five Studies for Harp, Contrabass, and Percussion, to be her opus one, but this piano sonata was written in the same year, so it's sort of the beginnings of her mature style. And I guess that's sort of the framing of this essay is that it is very representative of her musical language. Um, it's in three movements, like in her other piano pieces, Chaconne, Toccata Truncata, and Invention. It uses traditional form as a starting point. We've actually looked at two of these pieces on the channel already, and I think the Chaconne we will get to soon because it's written from around this time. Uh, yeah, the first movement is more or less it's a sonata form introduction up to measure 28. Then we have an exposition until 144, where we get our development, and then a recap at measure 226. I guess there's a lot that goes on in the recapitulation that's not present in the exposition, and then we have a little coda. Looks like we got some set theory, sets used to describe the piece 0136, 0127. I believe Luigi Nono was teaching serial techniques in the Soviet Union prior to the 1960s. So Gubaidulina, like Alfred Schnittke, would have had some access to these techniques. It was not completely foreign to the Soviet Union by the 1960s. It just came there a bit later. Another thing I find with a lot of Soviet composers is they have a very firm understanding of Beethoven, so there's often this sort of lens of like form as like the starting point for a piece. Like for example, when we were looking at Schnittke's second violin sonata, which was kind of like his big opus one, his first polystylistic piece, that piece was all about sonata form and pushing sonata form to its limits. So it's like very kind of form centered. And I think this is kind of a similar thing. Second movement, Is an ABA form with a cadenza in the middle. And the last movement, the Allegretto, the writer here is talking about it in terms of like episodes. So it's like this episodic form that goes from 1 to 7. Maybe I'll get into this essay at a later time when I have more time to do so. So one of the great things I love about dissertations is like often the um, the research is quite good, um, and you find really interesting things in dissertations about specific pieces, right? Pieces that people probably wouldn't take the time to analyze otherwise, and it's always free, right? There's no paywall to reading someone's dissertation, so I find it's like a really if you're like struggling to uh find your way back into academia and you don't have access to JSTOR and all these things like and you don't want to break your wallet, I think reading dissertations is a really good practice. Um, and conference proceedings. Anyways, this piece will be about 15 minutes. I have a link to a recording in the video description as always, and I'll let you know what I think. I'm kind of excited for it. We haven't looked at one of her larger pieces since Offertorium, and that was a really great piece. So, um, yeah, glad I can cover this on the channel. Okay, so my thoughts on this piece. I felt like the first movement was really the the real meaty, like sort of content of the work. I think the first half of the piece is just movement one, and then movements two and three were both kind of fun, but like I was surprised how well I could hear the sonata form in the first movement. Even though the themes are kind of abstract and chromatic. The retransition was really strong. There was like a B flat drone moment. Where is it? Yeah, here where you get the repeated B flat that descends all the way down the instrument one octave at a time. That's very clearly retransition, and then you get back into the theme again. So yeah, it was interesting to see sort of what the composer's idea of atonal music was, even though it wasn't really that atonal. Um, yeah, there's a lot of quartal and quintal harmonies in there, a lot of drones. I'm realizing it's very clear in this piece how much the composer relies on drones to make large sections of music. The second movement is a really great example because it's basically like the only thing that characterizes the A section is this E flat. Um, so when the E flat comes back, you can kind of tell that it's an ABA form, and the cadenza in that movement was kind of interesting too because it was like uh, just sort of playing inside the piano. It was very there's a lot of inside piano stuff actually, like muting the strings, and there's a certain physicality to it which I liked. It wasn't nearly as intense as like George Crumb or what he was doing at this time, but I think there must have been some sort of awareness in the Soviet Union that people were doing extended techniques with the piano like that, and people were trying it out. So next up will be some Morton Feldman, I believe. Let me just find the score title. I think it's just called Piano. Yeah, his piano piece from 1964.